Ever wonder why you can remember every single detail of a movie you haven't finished, but you completely forget the plot of one you saw just last week? Or how about that half-written email sitting in your drafts? Why does that seem to take up more mental space than 100 things you've actually completed? Well, there's a really powerful psychological reason for this. It's like a mental glitch that's hardwired into all of our brains. Today, we're going to dive deep into something called the Zeigarnik effect.
Okay, so think about the last time you were totally hooked on a TV show. You're binge watching, right? The story is just incredible, and then the episode ends on a massive cliffhanger. The main character's in mortal danger, a huge secret just got revealed, and then, boom, the screen just cuts to black.
So how does that feel in that moment? It's a mix of frustration, maybe a little bit of anger, and this just desperate, overwhelming need to know what happens next. That feeling of tension? Well, that is a very specific psychological state, and it's one that storytellers have absolutely learned to master. But here's the thing. This effect isn't just something used on us by Hollywood. It's something we do to ourselves every single day.
Just think about your own life for a second. That really important email you started writing, but you got stuck and just saved it as a draft. Or maybe it's that pile of laundry you sorted, but haven't actually washed yet. That task is just sitting there, unfinished, but it's taking up real estate in your mind, isn't it?
That is the feeling we're exploring today. It's like this persistent background noise in your head. And even when you're trying to focus on something else, making dinner, talking with friends, even trying to fall asleep, that unfinished business is just there, kind of poking at you. It's been described perfectly as a mental itch you can't scratch, like a browser tab in your mind that just refuses to close.
So what's really fascinating here is that this feeling, it's not a personal failing. It's not about you being lazy or disorganized. It actually has a name, and it's a really well-documented psychological phenomenon. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. And at its core, it's our brain's built-in mechanism to prioritize things that are still in progress.
And here's the most important part to get. The issue isn't really the unfinished task itself. It's the cognitive cost of what psychologists call an open loop. See, when you start something, your brain opens up a mental file, and it fully expects that file to get closed. When it doesn't, your brain keeps it active in your working memory, constantly reminding you about it. These open loops, they act like little psychic vampires, just slowly draining your mental energy and your focus.
So how in the world did we figure all this out? Well, to understand the science, we actually have to travel back in time to a bustling cafe in 1920s Berlin, where a brilliant psychologist made a simple but really profound observation. Let's dig into the origin story of this effect.
So our story starts with a psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik. As you can see here, back in 1927, she was sitting in this busy Berlin cafe when she noticed something truly remarkable about the waiters. They had this seemingly superhuman memory for huge, complicated orders. Who ordered what, all the special requests, and they did it all without writing anything down. But here's the really wild part. The second the bill was paid, that perfect memory just vanished. The task was complete, so the brain simply dumped the information. This sparked a huge idea in her mind. What if our memory is directly tied to whether or not a task is finished? So to test this, she brought people into her lab and gave them a bunch of simple puzzles. She let one group finish theirs, but she intentionally interrupted the other group right in the middle of their work.
And the results? They were absolutely astounding. When she later asked everyone to recall the puzzles they'd worked on, the group that was interrupted remembered their unfinished tasks almost twice as well as the group that had completed theirs. It was crystal clear proof. The interruption created this kind of mental stickiness, this state of unresolved tension that the simple act of completion just completely erased.
Okay, so that's the history. But what's actually going on inside our heads when this happens? Let's jump into the modern neuroscience and see how this all plays out with our brain chemistry and our cognitive processes. This is where it gets really, really cool.
Zeigarnik's theory was that starting a task creates what she called psychological tension. She also called it a quasi-need, which is just a fantastic term. It basically means your brain generates this feeling of needing to finish what you started. This tension, it's essentially a mental bookmark. It's a signal that something is unresolved, and it requires your attention now. The best way to think about this is probably a computer analogy. Your working memory, that's the part of your brain juggling what you're actively thinking about. It's like the RAM on your computer. It has a very limited capacity, maybe only 4 to 7 chunks of info at a time. So an unfinished task is like a program left running in the background, constantly eating up that precious RAM and making everything else you're trying to do run a lot slower. And of course, there's a neurochemical piece to this puzzle. Our brains are hardwired to seek rewards, and the main chemical for that is dopamine. When you complete a task, even a tiny one, your brain releases a little bit of dopamine. It's like a little good job signal. An unfinished task then is a state of denied reward. Your brain is just left hanging, craving that hit of closure, that chemical release. You could say, in a very real sense, we are addicted to completion.
So, let's just put it all together here. When a task is unfinished, our mind is in a state of tension. All the details are being held in our precious, limited working memory, and our brain is craving that satisfying hit of dopamine. But the moment that task is finished, everything changes. The tension is relieved, the information gets flushed from our active memory, and we finally get that rewarding chemical release. That's the whole cycle, right there in a nutshell.
All right, now that we get the science, let's look at how this nearly 100-year-old psychological principle shows up all around us in our modern world. And trust me, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It's used both on us and by us, a lot of times without us even realizing what's happening.
We started with this one, and it really is the most obvious example. TV shows, movie franchises, serialized podcasts, they are absolute masters of weaponizing the Zeigarnik effect. By deliberately creating an unresolved story, an open loop, they generate that exact cognitive tension we were just talking about. Your brain needs to resolve it, and that compels you to click next episode, even when it's 2 in the morning.
This just cuts right to the heart of their business model. At the end of the day, what they're selling you isn't just a story. They are selling you closure. The product is that feeling of relief you're finally going to get when the story is resolved. They create the itch, and then they sell you the scratch. It's a powerful and obviously very effective business strategy.
Now let's look at a more personal example. Let's say you have to respond to a really difficult email. You open it, you type maybe one sentence, you get overwhelmed, and you think, I'll finish this later. You save it as a draft. What's the effect? That email will now haunt you. Every single time you even glance at your inbox, your brain gives you a little jolt of anxiety. It would have been so much less mentally draining to either finish it right then and there, or to have not even opened it at all until you were truly ready.
And this is maybe the most profound and painful example of all. A relationship that ends suddenly, without a clear explanation. You're just left with a million unanswered questions. This is the ultimate emotional Zeigarnik effect. The relationship itself becomes an unfinished task, with no clear path to completion. So your brain does exactly what it's designed to do. It keeps the file open. It gets stuck in a loop, replaying conversations, analyzing every little detail, desperately trying to find the missing pieces so it can finally feel that relief of closure. And this lack of resolution can keep that emotional loop open and active for months, or sometimes even for years.
So, the big question is, are we just doomed to be haunted by every little thing we haven't finished? No, absolutely not. The good news is that the Zeigarnik effect is a tool, and once you understand how it works, you can actually use it to your advantage instead of letting it work against you. So let's get practical and build a toolkit for closing these mental tabs for good.
Okay, here are 5 really powerful, scientifically backed steps you can use to master this effect. First up, the brain dump. This is so simple, but it's incredibly effective. Get all those nagging tasks out of your head and onto a piece of paper or a digital list. This act of externalizing the memory tells your brain it's safe to let go for now, which immediately frees up that mental RAM. Second, the just 5 minutes hack. If you're procrastinating on something big, just commit to working on it for 5 minutes. That tiny start is enough to open the loop and trigger the Zeigarnik effect in your favor. Your brain will then start nagging you to keep going. Third, the strategic interruption. Now this is for complex problems. Instead of just pushing through until you're exhausted, intentionally step away. This lets your subconscious keep working on that unfinished problem in the background, and that often leads to creative breakthroughs when you're not even thinking about it. Fourth, define done. Break huge projects like write a book into tiny completable subtasks like write 1 paragraph. Every time you check one off, you get a small dopamine hit, which builds momentum and makes the whole goal feel way less daunting. And finally, number 5, the shutdown ritual. At the end of your workday, take just 2 minutes to review your open loops and make a clear plan for what you'll tackle tomorrow. This simple act gives you a sense of closure for the day, and it allows your brain to truly disconnect and recharge. Look, the crucial idea behind all of these strategies is that we can't eliminate unfinished tasks entirely. That's just not how life works. So the goal isn't to have 0 open loops. The goal is to manage the tension that they create. Whether it's by writing a task down in a brain dump or planning for it in a shutdown ritual, you're sending a clear signal to your brain. You're You're saying, hey, this is captured and there's a plan. You can release the tension for now. That right there is the key to taking back control. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a really powerful way to reframe this whole concept. We often think of that nagging feeling of unfinished business as a weakness, a flaw in our productivity or our discipline, but it's not. It's a feature of our cognitive architecture, not a bug.
This effect is really just your brain's built-in project manager. It's trying to help you achieve your goals. It's a biological nudge, just urging you to close the loop, to get that satisfaction of completion, so that you can free up your mental energy to move on to the next challenge, the next goal, the next great adventure.
So I'll end this with a question for you to think about. Now that you understand the power of the open loop and the amazing relief of closing it, what's that one nagging unfinished task that you can finally give your attention to? What mental tab will you choose to close first?